Yesterday, the US government released a number nobody in the market was expecting. In July, the American economy didn't just slow down, it actually lost 23,000 jobs. Not slower growth, an outright loss, the kind of print that almost never shows up outside of a recession. And within hours, one question was everywhere, on every finance account, every trading desk chat. Is this the AI jobs apocalypse everyone's been warning about, finally showing up? Here's the strange part. The same morning that number came out, the stock market didn't panic. It celebrated. The S&P 500 closed at a record high. The Nasdaq jumped more than 1%. Weak jobs data and Wall Street throwing a party. That's not as crazy as it sounds. A weaker labor market makes it more likely the Federal Reserve cuts interest rates in September, and cheaper borrowing tends to lift stock prices, especially the AI and technology names that have been driving this entire rally. So investors read bad news for workers as good news for stocks, at least in the short term. But that trade only works if the weakness stays small, and the debate over whether it's about to get a lot bigger has been building for a year and a half. None of this is happening in a vacuum. Four companies, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, and Meta, are on track to spend $725 billion combined on AI infrastructure this year alone. That's up 77% from last year, and analysts expect the combined number to cross $1 trillion in 2027. Every one of those dollars is, in a very literal sense, a bet that AI will eventually do work a human currently gets paid to do. It started on February 22nd, 2026, when a research firm called Citrini published a 7,000-word memo that went viral almost overnight. Its title, The 2028 Global Intelligence Crisis. The memo modeled a specific disaster. Half of white-collar America exposed to AI displacement, while blue-collar work, construction, healthcare, the skilled trades, stayed relatively untouched. 10.2% of all workers unemployed by 2028. The S&P 500 down 38% from its highs. It even gave the mechanism a name, an intelligence displacement spiral. Here's how it was supposed to unfold. AI replaces white-collar labor faster than the economy can absorb the workers it displaces. Consumer spending collapses. Unemployment spikes past 10%. The report coined a term for what's left behind. Ghost GDP, corporate profits climbing, while the income that's supposed to circulate through the economy simply vanishes. Citrini called it a thought exercise, not a forecast. Markets didn't treat it that way. The memo triggered real volatility within days, and 18 months later, the argument it started still hasn't been settled, because the actual layoff data kept climbing right alongside it. By May, companies had already cited AI as the reason for 87,000 job cuts in 2026, more than all of 2025 combined, in under 5 months. It didn't slow down from there. AI has now led every single monthly layoff report for 5 straight months in a row. Tech companies alone announced 149,000 cuts through July, up 67% from a year earlier, in an industry that is, ironically, the one spending the most money building the technology, doing the cutting. 1 in every 3 layoffs this year has come out of the tech industry. Add it up, and 2026 has produced 322 mass layoff events, cutting more than 205,000 jobs. Oracle's single cut of 30,000 people was the largest of the year, and CFOs privately admit to researchers that the real AI-driven number is running 9 times higher than what companies officially report, even if it's still a fraction of what Citrini's memo predicted. This isn't the first time a machine was supposed to erase an entire job. In the 1970s, Banks started rolling out ATMs, and everyone assumed tellers would disappear. What actually happened? ATMs let each branch run with fewer tellers, so banks opened more branches. Over the next 30 years, total teller employment didn't fall. It grew from about 500,000 jobs to roughly 550,000. The tellers who kept their jobs spent less time counting cash and more time giving financial advice, work that paid better. So the doomsday math looks like it's playing out exactly on schedule, except a study released at the end of June complicates the entire picture. Ramp and Revelio Labs tracked 21,559 American companies for 5 years. Their finding: businesses that spend the most on AI didn't shrink their workforce. They grew it by 10.2% over 2 years. Entry-level hiring at those same companies rose 12%. The layoffs are real. The hiring is also real. They're happening at different companies, in different jobs. The roles disappearing fastest are built on repetitive, structured tasks: computer programmers, customer service representatives, data entry. Work researchers now put at 65 to 75% exposure to automation. The roles barely moving are the ones built on judgment, negotiation, and relationships. The parts of a job that don't reduce cleanly to a prompt, no matter how good the model behind it gets. There's a counter-argument buried in economic history here too. When a resource gets cheaper, people don't use less of it. They use more. As AI gets cheaper and more capable, some economists argue it becomes a new factor of production entirely, creating the kind of work that doesn't exist yet, the same way the internet did. One research group puts the real trajectory this way: AI will reshape more than half of US jobs within a few years, but only 10 to 15% will be fully eliminated within 5. Reshaped is not the same as erased. Most of those 55% keep their jobs, just doing them differently, with different tools and fewer people around them. And that gap between disrupted and gone is exactly where yesterday's ugly jobs number lives. Unemployment itself has barely moved, even as targeted cuts pile up. That $725 billion bet is exactly why this story matters to your portfolio, not just your resume. If AI genuinely replaces that much labor, corporate margins expand and stock prices climb with them. If it mostly reshapes work instead, the way ATMs reshaped banking, the payoff is smaller, but a lot more people keep their income and keep spending it. Which version wins decides whether this bull market has real legs or whether it's pricing in a future that never actually shows up. So, is the apocalypse cancelled? Or is it just running on a slower clock than one very viral memo predicted? If you want to understand what's actually moving the markets before it hits your portfolio, subscribe.